Hey there, guys. All right. Welcome to week 21 of World War II. This is January 19th, 1940. Swedes, not Sweden, to Finland's rescue. Now, if you hear noise, I don't know if you can hear it, if it's getting picked up when I speak. There's something fucking happening outside. I don't know what. Some sort of construction. It's annoying. It's a weekend. I don't know why they're doing they usually only do construction on the weekdays. So like only ever on the weekdays. So this is the first. Fucking annoying. Anyway, before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. Would love to join the Discord, follow me over Twitch, and please do go check out the two gaming channels here on YouTube. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into this another week of World War II for our 8 days of World War II.
Yeah. Yeah, there's even a Jamaican guy.
Huh?
Okay. January 19th,
What about a
1940. One of the largest nations in history attacked a foe a tiny fraction of its size. That foe fought back and fought back well. But the battle will continue, though that foe is no longer alone. Here come the volunteers.
Yay!
I'm Indy Nidell. This is World War II. Last week, the Mohti battles, Finnish attacks against surrounded Red Army units, began in earnest. The Soviets had shaken up both their chain of command and their basic tactics, though, and were gearing up for a major offensive.
Dun, dun,
Both
dun.
the Allies and Germany were thinking of violating Norwegian neutrality, and Adolf
Thinking about? They actively are.
Hitler made plans for an attack in Western Europe this week, but those plans fell into Belgian hands in the Michelin incident. And the Belgians are anything but happy about it. On the 15th, they protested.
Well, I also wouldn't be happy if, someone had plans to invade my home.
To the Germans. They do not wish to again be a battlefield. The British and French believe that they will be asked or invited to move troops into Belgium now to prepare for a German attack, but Belgium still says, no way, Jose.
Okay, Belgium, what the fuck? No, okay. I didn't know about the Michelin incident up until now. So I thought the Belgians were just like caught off guard, that they were being just hopeful that Germany would just, leave them alone. They knew that they were going to be invaded. And they didn't do any. Kind of deserved it at that point. Now, of course, I mean the government, not the people.
As for that attack,
I feel like I have to say that context here, that disclaimer, because people on the internet are fucking stupid. Y'all don't know context, or y'all can't read deeper than surface level sometimes on things people say. So I have to add that disclaimer now and again.
on the afternoon of the 13th, a possibility of fog causes Hitler to delay it until the 20th. But that evening, it becomes clear to Berlin that the Dutch and Belgians have begun to mobilize, which makes sense. And it is also soon clear that even beyond the Michelin incident, there is an intelligence leak. It is in fact Colonel Hans Oster, who we've mentioned before, Deputy Chief of German Secret Service, who gave details of the attack to the Dutch attaché in Berlin, who in turn sent them by coded message to Brussels. The Germans had cracked the Belgian codes, though, so they now know there is a leak, just not who it is. Still, it is not this, but the weather forecast on the 16th, just before the postponed preliminary bombing is now supposed to begin, that causes Hitler to again cancel the plan. He wants at least 8 straight days of clear weather and calls the attack off until the spring. He also orders a military committee to think about action in the far north in Norway, to possibly use Narvik or Trondheim as U-boat bases, which will also completely secure the vital Swedish iron ore there from Allied interference. This is codenamed Research N. As for the Allies, General Edmund Ironside, chief of the British Imperial General Staff, thinks that sending at least a brigade to help the Finns in their war will justify taking the Norwegian ports themselves. He thinks mining Norwegian waters and the occupation of Bergen and Stavanger should happen no later than March 20th. He wants at least 5 divisions for this, with bomber and fighter support. But aid from the West for the Finns is actually beginning to arrive, as are volunteers. In fact, the Soviets protest strongly to the Swedes on the 13th for allowing British volunteers to pass through neutral Sweden. The protest is to no avail, and the Swedes let the volunteers pass, provided they wear no uniforms, are unarmed, and are not in active service with an Allied army. By the beginning of 1940, there were hundreds of Help Finland projects at work in Sweden, and though an awful lot of people wanted to help, it was a trickier situation with the Swedish government. Offering enough aid to make an actual difference would seriously compromise neutrality. Direct intervention could mean hostility from the USSR or Germany or both. They're maybe being oversensitive in terms of the Germans. I mean, Hitler is probably not going to allow a Soviet state to take route 5 minutes flying time from Germany, especially one that controls the ore that Germany needs for its own war effort. Anyhow, if the Swedes send aid, that will only prolong the Winter War and keep Stalin occupied and unable to interfere in any of Hitler's plans. So for Hitler, that'd be a good thing. William Trotter thinks the Swedish population would have overwhelmingly voted to go to war if they'd had the chance. And when Foreign Minister Rickard Sandler called Swedish official policy neutrality carried to the point of pure idiocy in the parliament, he got a standing ovation. Now, he actually left the government last month because of differences over what Sweden should or should not do for Finland. He is very much in favor of actively helping the Finns. Sweden does top the list in foreign aid to the Finns, though, supplying 100 machine guns, 89 artillery pieces, 77,000 rifles, 85 AA guns, and 8,000 volunteers, many of whom will see action. Germany did actually allow weapons to pass through en route to Finland until a Swedish newspaper ran the story. And when Soviet diplomats complained, Hitler's policy towards Finland became silence. The USSR propaganda machine keeps doing its business, telling the world that Finland is the real aggressor, because that makes sense. Claiming that the Kuusinen government I talked about December 1st is the legitimate Finnish government, and that Carl Gustav Mannerheim, who commands the Finnish armed forces, is enslaving the Finnish workers. It is, in fact, so ludicrous that tiny Finland could be a threat to gigantic Russia that most of the world's communists choose to sit this one out. Actually, here's a good quote from Trotter about what was happening during the January lull in the fighting on the Karelian Isthmus. The Russians began using loudspeaker trucks to broadcast propaganda programs towards Finnish lines. The Finns started looking forward to them since the music was refreshing and the Red Artillery had orders to cease firing during the playing of Kuusinen's speeches so the Finns would not miss a word. They actually used the speech time to run and have toilet breaks. The Red Army has changed its tactics after the disasters of December. Part of the new strategy is the heavy bombing of road and railway junctions to cripple Finnish movement, also of army depots and the docks. On just January 14th, for example, 35 towns are bombed. Thing is, what are you really going to bomb? 90% of Finland is rural wilderness. The rail centers, of course, are important and are bombed to smithereens this month. But one of the easiest transportation things to rebuild is a train track. So the trains are usually running again a few hours after the bombing. Helsinki isn't much targeted after the first day of the war. Trotter suggests that this might partly be because the Soviets didn't think it worth bombing if they might, in addition, wipe out some nation's embassy or kill a bunch of foreign journalists. He writes that only 5% of total man-hour production time was lost because of all the bombing, though it does make people very angry. Around 650 Finns are killed in over 2,000 bombing raids. The Soviets have success, however, at Turku harbor, where the most foreign aid arrives, and where they destroy nearly 80% of the docking facilities. And Viipuri, the second largest Finnish city, is pretty well flattened, mainly by railroad guns fired all the way from Leningrad. They also destroy Mannerheim's headquarters at Mikkeli. But while the airstrikes have mixed success, plans for the coming offensive on the Mannerheim line are in full swing. Dozens of KV heavy tanks are brought in. These 43-ton monsters with 76.2 millimeter cannon are pretty much invulnerable on decent ground. Tank doctrine is no longer going to be breakthrough way ahead of support and then wait and see what happens. Tanks will have limited objectives and are under strict orders not to outpace infantry support. It's the artillery that is to be the real killer, though. 2,800 heavy guns, including the huge railway guns, that will send massive shells into the Finnish rear. Balloon spotters protected by fighter planes will direct the artillery from high above the battlefield by radio. Well, that's plans for the continuing invasion. What is happening in places where the invasion is complete, like German-occupied Poland? Andrzej Kot, the leader of PLAN, an underground organization in Warsaw, which translated is Polish People's Independence Action, had been captured by the Gestapo. Kot is the son of parents who had converted from Judaism to Catholicism. He studied in England, but returned to Poland at the beginning of the war.
He's dead.
And was one of the founders of PLAN and the head of the fighting division. Now, most of the PLAN leaders had been caught after its first few actions, but Kot has managed to escape Gestapo headquarters.
Oh, fucking shit. Mad lad.
Tomorrow, the 20th, a poster will appear that promises a hefty reward for the Jew Andrzej Kot. But starting even before that on the 18th, dozens of people will be arrested in the Kot affair as a group of terrorists. It will not be until August that the Gestapo release 2 lists of the prisoners involved, with the heading, "A list of those arrested on January 18 to 25, 1940. On one, with 165 names, the word "dead" is written at the top of the page. The word "alive" is typed on the second list of 90 names. Of these 255 people, 208 had professions listed: lawyers, doctors, rabbis, and so forth. Apparently, though, the families of those listed as alive never see those individuals again. And here is a political note to end the week. On the 14th, Japanese Prime Minister Nobuyuki Abe and his cabinet resigned. He is a former general in the Imperial Army, the ex-governor general of Korea, and has only been prime minister for 4 months. He has been driving for an end to the Sino-Japanese War, and no alliance with Nazi Germany or fascist Italy, but instead neutrality and no involvement. He is ousted by his opponents, the hawks of the Imperial Army. Admiral Mitsumasa Yonai gets the nod to form a new government. So that was the week. The Germans calling off their plans for an attack in the west, even as the Soviets are beginning to put their new plan in action in the north. The Swedish government saying it's not going to interfere with those plans, even as volunteers and supplies for the Finns stream through Sweden. There's something uplifting about humanity that we see even during the toughest times. Well, especially during the toughest times.
Yes, but we also see, the worst of humanity. So I don't know. It can go back and forth. It depends.
People always come to fight against the big guy. Even in the most repressive regimes in history, there have always been underground movements, resistance movements, volunteers against tyranny. I suppose this is the indomitable nobility of the human spirit. Sure, it might sometimes disguise wide-eyed innocence, but it's there. It's always there. And it's always refreshing. And as for neutrality, if you'd like to see our Between Two Wars episode about...
And that was week 21 of World War II, January 19th, 1940. Swedes, not Sweden, to Finland's rescue. This was a good episode, as they all are. The one thing is kind of standing out. I feel like he's only using 1 or 2 resources for the World War II series here. Whereas for World War I, there seemed to be a lot more diversity in where he pulled from. So I don't know if that's going to be a continued thing going on here or not, or if I'm just kind of misremembering where he's pulling resources from and stuff. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.